Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
The first time it happened, I thought I was dying. I was trapped in semi-darkness, unable to move anything but my eyes, left to right, seeing nothing beyond the gloom. The shadows seemed thicker than usual and more alive. I was unable to move any part of my body. My legs were locked in a strange bow-legged position, and my fingers were curled at either side of me, nails cutting into my palms. I was breathing, but there was a strange pressure on my chest, like fingers pressing down into my ribs. Was I having a heart attack? Was I dying? Those were the first thoughts that ran through my mind with startling clarity, making panic thrum through my veins. I tried to speak, peeling my lips apart, but nothing came out. Nothing but a faint whisper, sinking into the darkness around me. What was happening? I felt awake, yet it was also like a dream. Nothing seemed real, and yet I was aware of everything. The beat of my heart, the breeze dancing along my bare skin, the emptiness of the room. That was it, wasn't it? The end. This paralysis. My body was dying, shutting off. Was this the part where my soul left my body? The moment where everything went dark and quiet? These thoughts went around and around in my head until, after what felt like hours had passed, I woke up. Well, I didn't wake up exactly. My mind was already awake, but my body woke up. First my fingers, then my arms and feet, until I could slowly elevate myself into an upright position. Blinking away the shadows, I turned to the window. Dawn was barely breaking on the skyline, a warmish glow beginning to spread over the rooftops. It was already morning. Part of me was still under the belief that I had died, and this was all some kind of after effect. But when my alarm started ringing, reminding me to get up, I realized it must have all been a nightmare. I was alive. I was awake. When I told my colleague about it later that day, he nodded solemnly and told me I'd experienced something called sleep paralysis. Apparently, his niece had suffered from it when she was younger, but she'd grown out of it. What causes it? I asked as we stocked the shelves together at the supermarket where we worked. It was quiet today. Nothing but the faint static hum of the air conditioning and the crinkling of plastic as we unloaded products from the trolley. No idea, man, Adam said with a lopsided shrug. Doctors told me there wasn't a lot you can do about it. It depends on sleep patterns and that kind of thing. Is it dangerous? I continued hesitantly. Part of me was relieved that it wasn't some kind of unnatural phenomenon, but the whole idea of being paralyzed during sleep sounded pretty horrible. Nah, don't think so. It's just where your mind wakes up but your body's still asleep, or something like that. Nothing dangerous, he said with a faint chuckle. My niece used to say it was scary, though. Sometimes you see things. See things? I echoed in disbelief. What? You mean like hallucinations? He shrugged again. Something like that, I guess. Huh, I muttered, staring thoughtfully at the can of beans I was holding. Maybe it was a one-off. Adam nodded. Maybe. It happened again a few nights later. I was startled awake by something unseen, my eyes blinking open against sudden darkness. The rest of my body was trapped in a state of paralysis. I was on my back again, staring up at the ceiling, which was strange, since I always fall asleep on my stomach. I had not expected it to happen again so soon. Not when I had never experienced anything like this before. As I stared up at the ceiling, Adam's words from yesterday ran through my mind. Sometimes you see things. What had he meant by that? See what exactly? My room was thinly furnished as it was, and there wasn't much to see, but pockets of darkness in the corners and around my bed. I was unable to turn my head to look at either side of me. My vision was relegated only to the ceiling, and my body sprawled out along the bed. I was stuck like this for another few hours, my body sleeping while my mind was still awake. Surely there was still the possibility I could fall back asleep though. My eyes were heavy with fatigue, and I had trouble keeping them open, even despite my anxiety at being paralyzed. My legs were at a slightly awkward angle again, and my hands were somewhere beneath the covers, but my eyes eventually fluttered closed, and the darkness deepened in my mind, becoming a warm, comforting darkness. I felt my mind jerk awake as something touched my chest. There was a pressure there, like the first time it happened, only this was stronger, more direct, as though something was holding a hand against me, pushing me further into the mattress. My eyes flew open, and the darkness swelled around me like something alive, frolicking in the shadows. A bead of sweat ran down the side of my head, dripping down to my neck, but I couldn't wipe it away. Panic threaded an uneasy pulse beneath my skin, my chest thudding with each beat of my heart, until it felt like it would crack through my ribs and burst right out of my chest. There was nobody standing over me, but the impression of fingers against my ribs were so real I almost expected there to be a figure in the darkness, leering down at me. Was this a hallucination? Was the pressure not real either? Could this just be something conjured by my own weak mind? I gasped again, each breath coming through gritted teeth. The sensations of fingers under my ribs felt so real. The hand against my chest did not feel like an illusion. Was there something in here that I couldn't see? Another soft whimper parted my lips as I willed my body to move, trying to fight back against the pressure. I felt along my body, trying each muscle, desperate for something, but I was completely frozen. This isn't real, I chanted in my head. This isn't real. This isn't real. After what felt like hours, the pressure finally began to ease. My chest expanded again, as though whatever had been pressing down on me was being lifted away. I still couldn't move, but I could breathe properly. Adam told me that sleep paralysis wasn't dangerous, but this experience had felt so real. After another few attempts, I was finally able to fall back asleep. "You don't look so good, man," Adam said as I walked into work hours later than usual. My eyes felt sick with sleep, and I knew from looking in the mirror that morning that I had dark shadows beneath them. "Yeah," I muttered, dropping my stuff sluggishly into my staff locker and leaning my back against it. Trouble sleeping. "Sleep paralysis again?" Adam said, his brow pinching together. I nodded, saying nothing. "Maybe you should see a doctor about it," Adam suggested. "This isn't a direct treatment, but they can suggest a sleep pattern to follow. My niece did, and eventually she stopped having the experience altogether." A sleep pattern. Sounds like too much effort, I said faintly. Though if it meant my nights wouldn't be interrupted like this, I would stop feeling so tired all the time. "Yeah, but it'll help, especially if this becomes a common thing," he said matter-of-factly. "Anyways, boss wants me on Frozen today, so I'll see you later, yeah?" I didn't think the sleep paralysis would get any worse, but it did. The third time it happened, a few nights later, I got the distinct feeling that I wasn't alone. There was something else in the room with me. I could feel it. This wasn't like the other times. My senses were reacting in response to something else, hiding in the shadows of the room. I was slightly on my side this time, my arm trapped beneath my hip, and my legs crossed over each other. There was a breeze blowing along the tip of my toes, as though the covers had come untucked from the bed, creating a gap that was letting in the night's chill. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread creeping beneath my ribs, my breathing coming out heavy and strained. What was it? Not who, It wasn't a person. It was something else. I was sure of it. Nothing I could easily describe, other than a growing presence in the room. Whatever it was watching me. I knew with clarity that it was staring at me from the darkness, waiting for me to do something. But there was nothing I could do. Not while my body was paralyzed like this. Was this the hallucinations that Adam was talking about? But it felt so real. There was no way my mind could conjure up something so realistic. Even though I couldn't see anything, the fear my body was experiencing couldn't be made up. Whatever was in the room, whether it was real or not, terrified me. The side of the room I was facing had nothing but a wall and a door further along that I couldn't quite see. The window was behind me, along with my dresser and wardrobe. Part of me was sure that if I was facing the other way, I'd see a silhouette shadowed against the window. There was no doubt in my mind I would see someone standing in the darkness. As much as I wanted to squeeze my eyes closed and fall back asleep, I couldn't. I stared at the wall until my eyes began to water, forcing me to blink. When I opened my eyes again, there was someone in the edge of my peripheral. A cold, heavy dread fell over me, and my heart stopped in mid-beat in my chest. A figure, darker and more solid than the shadows around my room, stood just out of my immediate sight. It was tall, but in an elongated sort of way, like its limbs had been stretched, and it had no face. I was hesitant to call it human, since something about it felt unnatural and strange. Like it shouldn't be here. It's not real, I told myself. It's not real. It can't be real. It's just a hallucination. It'll go away eventually. Even though part of me knew it was just a side effect of the sleep paralysis, the other part of me convinced it was real. There really was an intruder in my house, in my room, watching me sleep. Did it know I was awake? Did it know I couldn't move? Could it know? Could it see? In the darkness, it had no features, but I felt it watching me, and somehow, I knew that it knew I was awake. I was terrified to blink, terrified that the next time I opened my eyes, it would be one step closer. Near enough for me to see its horrible, inhuman face, but it didn't. It stayed where it was, just on the edge of my vision, neither moving closer or further away. What does it want? Nothing. It was nothing. It's not real. It's all in your head. But what if it isn't? I clenched my teeth. Morning would break soon. At least a few hours have passed since this started. Surely dawn wasn't that far off. At some point in the night, the shadow figure disappeared, and I fell back asleep. But the memory of it was still fresh in my mind when I woke up in the morning. Had I really hallucinated someone in my room? Someone watching me sleep? Adam didn't work Thursday, so I couldn't talk to him about it at work. The strange shadow figure stayed on my mind all day. When night fell, I was terrified of going to sleep. What if it happened again? What if the shadow came back? What if, this time, I saw its face? My fears were ungrounded. I knew, but it didn't stop a shiver of anxiety spreading goosebumps along my neck. As I went to bed that night, I debated staying awake for as long as I could, but I had to work early in the morning and didn't want to risk oversleeping. And anyways, it wasn't as though the paralysis happened every night. Maybe tonight I would be lucky. Reaching over towards the lamp switch, I hesitated. I could leave the lamp on, but I could barely afford my electric bill as it was. Swallowing, I switched it off, letting the darkness settle over me and closed my eyes. I wasn't sure how long had passed when I began to hear the breathing. In the silence between my own steady breaths, I could hear someone else's. It took a moment for that to sink in. The fact that those extra breaths shouldn't be there. They didn't belong to me, but someone else. My eyes opened, and I let out a quiet whimper. A face was staring down at me. It had no features that I could make out, other than the pallid hues of its eyes, set inside an anomaly of darkness. Even if I tried to describe it, I don't think I could. It was too strange, like nothing I'd experienced before. All I knew was that something was standing over me, watching me sleep, and I couldn't move. Would it hurt me? Would it do anything? Or would it just stand there, watching over me, taunting me with those strange, inhuman eyes? Sweat poured along my brow, dribbling down the side of my face. When it started to drip down into my eyes, I fought the urge to blink, letting it bead along my eyelashes. My vision grew fuzzy for a moment, and I stared at the thing through half-lidded eyes. Then something touched me, like a clumsy brush of a finger along my cheek. My breath began to grow erratic, each thud of my heart like a drum beat. I pressed my eyes closed as tight as I could, wishing it would stop. That cold, slightly damp sensation of shadow against my skin. Please stop. Let me wake up. It's not real. It's not real. I don't know how long it lasted. The thing standing over me, touching my face, but at some point the sensation passed, and I was able to move again. The room was still dark, but there was no figure hiding in the shadows anymore. I reached over and switched the light on, finding the warm glow comforting. It was that childish sentiment of nothing could hurt me in the light. I left the lamp on for the rest of the night. When I told Adam about what I experienced, he looked at me strangely disturbed. Nancy didn't experience anything like that, he said. Sounds pretty creepy, man. Yeah, it wasn't fun, I said, nodding tiredly. Just wanted to stop, you know? I feel like I'm barely getting any sleep. It just felt so real. He nodded, pursing his lips. Why don't you set up a camera? I stared at him. What for? He shrugged, but the thoughtful expression didn't go away. And I don't know. Maybe it'll help you understand it isn't real. What you're seeing is all in your head. It won't be picked up on camera, right? That sounds like a dumb idea, I muttered. And anyway, I don't have a night vision camera. Adam flashed his teeth. My uncle owns a camping shop. He might be able to lend you something. I sighed. I guess it might alleviate some of my anxiety. It's difficult to believe it isn't really happening when you see it right in front of you. Adam nodded, patting my shoulder. Cool. I'll pay my uncle a visit and hook you up with a camera tomorrow. Thanks. I felt strangely nervous about checking the footage. I had set the camera to record all night, so it caught me in the midst of my sleep paralysis. It would be weird seeing myself from the outside while it was happening, but like Adam said, maybe seeing what was happening in real life would mean experiencing it wasn't so scary after all. I needed the reassurance, especially after seeing the shadowy figure again last night, standing over my bed. Setting up the recording on my beat-up laptop, I began to watch through. I had the speed on double, so that I'd get through the first part of the night where nothing had happened. It was around 2 o'clock when I saw myself wake up on screen. My body was completely still, while my eyes moved around, staring up at the ceiling. I stayed like that for a while, just staring. I must have been seeing the figure at this point, standing over me again. I could almost feel the clammy touch of its fingers, even now, and shuddered. Even though I knew it was all in my head, I had a feeling it wouldn't make the experience any easier too. I paused, staring hard at the screen. Something had flitted past the camera. Because of the speed, it was only a split-second fraction, but I caught it in my periphery. It could have been just a dark speck or something, but I rewound it back anyway and hit play. A few minutes later, nothing happened. Then a shadow appeared suddenly at the edge of the screen, crossing the room in front of the camera. My body went cold with dread. I had not been alone last night after all. Tonight's story is written by Hair-Raising Narratives. If you enjoyed this story, chances are you enjoy the content over on his channel. The links will be in the description below. Also, I have merch. If you'd like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the links will be in the description below. I'd like to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. 242 reads, Rando Calrissian, Pam, Seraphine the Midnight Bard, Creepy Clown Girl, Mia Mina, Philia Noctis, and hair-raising narratives. If you'd like to join these lovely travelers by the light of my fire, you can do so by becoming a Patreon as well. The support is always appreciated, but never expected.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.